Hello. I'm getting my apron on. Stencil day can be messy, so I have to have my apron on. I hope you all are getting your aprons on. You can play along, which would be awesome. Oh, I forget to mute myself all the time. There we go. Now you don't hear me delayed by like 30 seconds or whatever the crazy time gap is. Today we're going to talk about stenciling. I love stencils. You can do so much with them. Alright, that camera angle looks pretty good. Let me just adjust it a touch here. Let's see what that looks like. Give everyone just one more second here. I could probably be... There we go. That angle looks pretty good. I'm going to go a tiny bit closer. Just a wee bit. And like that. There we go. All right. I think that's enough fidgeting around for today. What do you think? All right. Who's on? Is that Gina and Mom? Gina. Yep. Hello. And Marley, I'm sure. And I know Marley has her stuff ready, so good job, Mars. Yep, and Mom. Perfect. All right. So this is one of my 2 albums of stencils. These are my Stencil Girl stencils, and then I have another binder of just other brands of random stencils. You can get, and then I have some stencils here, like you can get stencils in any kind of size, right? Here's a little one. Here's these. These are just super cheapy stencils. These came with something else. They're meant to kind of be all put together and used, like if you're doing art journaling or something, you would have your little stencils with you. Here's the whole little set of them. Right, so those are tiny. And then you can have stencils that are very large. I have some larger ones probably in here. Here's some small ones that are card size. Where's my, let me get a piece of black paper so you can see it a little bit better maybe. All right, so those are card size. So when I do like altered trading cards, I might use these. Or if I did just a card, if I was making a handmade card, any of these would fit on the front really well. You can also use small stencils to make a big stencil. So you don't have to be limited by the fact that they're tiny, right? I could take this tiny stencil and lay it out and repeat it all the way across a great big page. So I can make this one tiny stencil be really big, right? And in the same regard, let's go to a big one. I could take, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I could take this big stencil. Let me put slide this over so you can see it. And put a piece of paper behind it here so you can see what I'm saying. The white on white is not very camera friendly. Okay, so I could take a big stencil like this one. I think this is a 9x12. And I have bigger ones even than this, but I could take this one and I could just use a tiny piece of it. So even though this would fit in a whole big page, I could say I just want to do this section on the front of a card if I was making a handmade card. Or I just want to do this little piece with the sun and the clouds and that, or these little houses, or these little trees, or these little fish. And that's really what makes a good stencil so versatile, is that, and such a great creative tool, is that you don't have to use the stencil just as it is. You can allow yourself to be creative and do all kinds of other things with it. So that's one of the things I love about stencils. Then I also wanted to show you one other thing. So there's also masks. So here I happen to have a stencil and the mask. And some companies will give you these all the time. Some, like Stencil Girl, occasionally I get the stencil and the mask. All right, so here, this is technically the stencil, but it's this outside edge and it's completely blank inside. Then I have this, which is a mask, but it's also a stencil inside of it. So I could take, which I have done in the past, like I could take one color, a bright orange maybe would be really cool, and paint that whole thing bright orange, let that dry, and then put this down and do black or dark gray. And it would really pop out, or even a navy blue on an orange, complementary colors we've talked about, would be super cool, pop right out. So there's lots of ways that stencils look. Stencils can be wood, they can be metal, they can be, these are plastic. You can even make a stencil out of paper. I've taken cardstock like this and run it through my Cricut machine and, you know, cut out hearts or whatever and had a whole page of just hearts, and then I've used that as a stencil to reuse it. So lots of ability to do lots of cool things with anything you can make into a stencil. So it doesn't just have to be these plastic things. But you can find stencils pretty cheaply in most places. Your paint stores and, of course, any kind of craft store. Some hardware stores even, because you can, of course, do stencils on walls. So there is kind of the high-level stencils. And I like mine and do lots of things with them. I've done things from really traditional. Let me see. I don't know if I'll be able to take that down. I've done really traditional where I've made, with several stencils, a picture. I just feel like showing you, so I'm going to make you a little seasick for a hot second here. So this picture with the flowers, that's several floral stencils that I have, that I made into that. Or, and what I'll show you here in a second, let me get you back down to the right angle, and thank you everyone for putting up with my giving you a little ride. Or I've done like these where it's just like an abstract kind of collage-y type of design with a number of stencils. These are actually, when I do Stencil Girl, I belong to their monthly club. So once a month I get 3 stencils. In this particular, this was done with these stencils. So you can see down here, this is like this, where I laid it across. I took this one and did it across here. I took just some of these florals and put them here in this really bright pink color. I took the leaves and did that. So I did lots of just different things with these 3 stencils, right, to make this kind of cool. It's almost like trees and then flowers and this kind of explosion of color. This is one of my favorite ones that I've done recently. And you can use stencils with all kinds of mediums too. So you can paint with them. Like this is, I think, acrylic paint and ink that I used. And we've talked about inks in the past. You can use inks. You can use watercolor paint. You can use acrylic paint. You can use mediums. You know, I've used all kinds of, like I have this as a foil medium. This is super cool. I can run it through my laminator with a foil sheet and foil with it. I could do these different texture pastes. I can do glitter paste. I can do anything. I have these Nouveaux. I can do these Nouveau, they're called mousses, but they're not all that moussey. They're not super whipped. But anyway, I could use it, scoop it out and apply it through if I wanted a thick texture. I can use a stencil brush, which I've done in the past, and stencil if I want more of a diffused thing. So all kinds of stuff. I use my gel plate with my stencils. Like I said, I love using gel plate with stencils because I feel like it holds it down really well. You can do all kinds of really cool, fun layering techniques with it. So lots of cool things to do with stencils. Ooh, Mars wants to know what complementary colors are. All right, Marley will remind you. And I think in your little art kit that I gave you a color wheel. Complementary colors would be colors on the opposite sides of the color wheel. For example, blue and yellow are typically complementary, opposite sides of the color wheel. Complementary colors, when you put them together, make each other pop out. So it's a way to bring attention to the colors. Versus colors that are right next to each other are kind of, going from one shade to another shade to another shade. So that's what complementary colors are. And you'd see those on your color wheel. They are on opposite. They would touch at the points, but be on the opposite sides. Good question. Okay, so what I was thinking of doing today, once I kind of showed you the stencils, is, of course, we have to try things, right? We're going to play. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to use black paper or white paper. And I have, these are my stencils from last month. Usually on the first of the month we get to see, from the Stencil Club, we get to see what the stencils are. And then they get sent out around the 15th. And I haven't had a lot of time to use them. I did use this one a little bit. You can see it still has a little bit of ink on it. You don't have to clean them perfectly. It's not any big deal. Here's actually, I think these two. But what this had been was I had in something else done, so you can also use sprays, right? So I used these cool sprays, sprayed it on the stencil. Well, let me just do it and I'll show you. I'll show you. That's better than just talking about it, right? So what I did was, and also with stencils, especially good ones, is the stencil, you can't really see it, but it has this V kind of in it, right? So when you put whatever it is in there, it goes kind of inside that pocket. Now it's, obviously very thin. This is a big exaggeration from what it really looks like, but it kind of has that shape to it. And so you want to always put the stencil right side up to have it like that. Otherwise you're going like this and you're going to get seepage underneath, right? Even more likely. So if your stencil has a name on it, like this one says Stencil Girl Products on it, has the name of the stencil, that's how I know this is the top. If your stencil doesn't have that, a lot of times they'll have some kind of code or number that gives you an indication. If they don't, sometimes when you look at them, you can kind of tell which side is supposed to be the front and which side is supposed to be the back. I've also seen people, once they figure it out, they take a Sharpie and put out like an X or a mark on it so that they always know what the top is, so they're not having to always look. I've done that with a few, but by and large I don't. Anyway, so what I did to make this was I took two of these sprays. So let me see if I can grab another color here. Yep, complementary-ish, right? Blue and orange. Shake, shake, shake. Hopefully they both work. Sometimes the little pumps get stuck, but anyway, that's a whole separate problem. And I sprayed. Okay, that's pretty wet. And then what I did was I used this to pick up the negative. So then I give that a second to dry. I picked this up. Look how cool that looks. Pretty cool, right? And then I literally took this and made a negative. Right? It's maybe not quite as perfect, but look how cool that is. So that's how I did this. I'd use this stencil for something else and then just kind of offset it. So I think that's pretty cool. Now you can just wipe this off with paper towel, or this is my usual, well, that's another way too, is to wipe it off and you get it kind of through there too. So look how cool that is. Right, you can just wipe it off with this. What I actually do a lot of times, because I stencil, when I really get into it, I use so many different mediums. I actually have a just a little Tupperware container, and I'll toss these into it. It has a little bit of soapy water. And then when I'm done, I'll wash them all off, and then nothing dries on it, and they stay a little bit nicer. And then I don't have to scrub them. I don't like when the paint dries and I have to scrub it to get the paint off. Sometimes the stencil gets bent and stuff, which is probably not the greatest. So there's that. So now you saw kind of how I would use that and use that with sprays. So that was fun to try. And make the positive and the negative image. But what I had thought that I would do in that feathers was from this set. And this set, bring this black piece of paper back out here. This set are these birds. Now, that's always, I guess, the up and down side of when you belong to a stencil club or any kind of club like this, is that you don't really see what the new thing is, although they might give you a sneak peek here and there. You don't really get to see. Part of the fun is not knowing what you'll end up getting and being excited about it. Most of the stencils I really love. This particular one, I wasn't sure if I liked it or not liked it. Like if someone asked me to buy this one out of the package, I probably wouldn't. Do you flip it over for the negative? You're talking about when I did the feather stencil? No, I could put the book right on top of it or flip it over, but it's the negative because it took the wet and made the negative. So it was the negative and then the wet that I had when I flipped it over, almost like a stamp, to make the negative. But yeah, so this, I probably wouldn't have bought this on my own, but again, then I thought this one is not so bad. And there's good pieces in here. Like I said, you don't have to use the whole stencil all the time. I could do pieces with this and not necessarily have to love the whole thing. There's lots of really cool elements inside of this design. So that made me feel a little bit better about this particular one. This one I like these little designs. These are great for trading cards or repeated patterns, junk journals, anything. Love it. And the feathers, totally love. I love any kind of feather stencil. This one I wasn't so sure about, so I thought maybe this one we could use for Try It Tuesday, right? And see what we can do with a stencil that maybe I wouldn't have picked out on my own. So what do you girls think? Should we do something on black paper or something on a white paper? What do you think? Black or white? Type in your answer. I'm making you integrate with me today. Black or white, what do you think? Black or white? White. Mom says white. All right. We'll go with white. I'm gonna set those over. Let me get another piece of white paper. So what I have there, I think I'll use is I got this for $5.49 at Hobby Lobby clearance section. I wish I would have bought like a box of them. Although this might have been the last one they have. Originally priced at $21.99, I'll have you know. This is Mixed Media Vellum Surface, which I think anytime I'm using more of a wet medium, like paint especially, the vellum mixed media works nice. Because it's almost like putting a thin coat of clear gesso on there, right? It's not so super absorbent, and this particular one is also not toothy. It's very smooth, which I like smoother paper when I stencil too, because again, any of those little bumps the paint likes to leak underneath if you're using a really wet paint. So we'll go with this. Then, let's see. Make sure I have it front up. I apparently tried to use this one too. Yeah, I think I tried to use this one in a journal page too. Get this out of the way. Okay. So many things you can do with stencils. So many. So what I think I'll do is maybe we'll do some painting first. When I use paint, you can just take a brush and brush it on. If you use a thicker paint like an acrylic, it's probably going to seep through. So just know that that's the case. I've bought this like giant bag of, I don't know, 100 or 250 or however many it is of these little triangle makeup sponges. See my cool nails, by the way? These cool makeup sponges, these work really good and they're very inexpensive. Work great for using acrylic paint. They also work really nice with ink if I'm inking. So those I like to use. I know I've gotten these. I think Marley has a set or two of these. I got these from Blick. These are nice because they have a variety of sizes. So if I'm doing something really small, I can just use the teeny tinies. Right? I also have one of these, which is really nice if I'm doing just like a whole big section with paint, acrylic paint. I would generally use it with. I don't know that it would work for anything else necessarily, but I like it for that. So here's what I'm thinking. And the more I sit around, the more ideas I get. So that's all good stuff. And I also can, which I sometimes do and sometimes don't do, but I'll do it today since we're all here, is tape the stencil down a little bit. Again, you don't have to. You want to use, if you do, you want to use a painter's tape or a purple tape, just to help protect things. So I'm going to do that a little bit just right here, I think, and maybe over here. And well, here's what I'm thinking, is that I'm going to do some mixing. And I'll mix on this sheet of paper here. I am going to use some Crackle Finish and brown paint for the leaves because I can, because I have it, and because I think it's going to look cool. If you don't have Crackle Finish, that's fine. You can just use paint. Like I said, you can, the beauty of stencil is you can use whatever you have and make the most of it. You can even just take markers, and I've done this many times, taken markers or crayons or pencils and just use this for the lines and make it look like a drawing. That's another stencil thing that I want to do. Maybe another time we'll do this. Where I just kind of do watercolor and make it like with my florals. You saw my floral that was hanging up. Do a watercolor where it just bleeds out, and then make it look like I sketched it with a black pen and the stencil. I've seen some images that kind of look like that, so I'm pretty excited about doing that. All right, so I took my Crackle Finish. Now I'm adding some acrylic paint, and I'm going to mix that up. Let me move that maybe over here where you can see a little better, although I think you can see it fine. I just probably can't reach it so good. And I don't know how Crackle is with acrylic paint. I haven't used acrylic paint in it before. I've used other ink in there before, so we'll see. If it doesn't crackle, that's still fine. It's still going to get me where I want to go. Okay. So even when you're using one of these little spackly knives, you want to be pretty, well, maybe I won't even use a spackly knife with it because I feel like that's too small. I'm going to use my small dauber. So now I'm going to use it like paint, but it has that crackle in it. And what I want to do is just kind of do the tree and not so much the bird. Right, and I can go back and do the bird. Right, you just want to go light. You don't want to put too much on, because if you put it on too thick, that's when it soaks through. And again, this particular design is pretty fine. And you just have to kind of go in knowing and being okay with the fact that it may not all stay in the lines. You may get some stuff seeping out of the lines, and you just have to be okay with it. If you want it super crisp, which some people like to, then I would use, and sometimes I do want it super crisp, then I would use this Pixie spray, which is a repositionable adhesive for stencil. So I would spray it underneath and then set the paper down, and that kind of is like a temporary glue. Mom's used the side of a crayon. Yep, you can use the side of a crayon with a stencil, absolutely. You can also put the stencil underneath and the paper on top and do a rub with a stencil, and you'd get that texture too, which would make, again, that negative image. So, right, lots of versatility, again, with your stencils. Right, you can spray them, you can dab them, you can paint them, you can draw with them. You can do positives, you can do negatives, you can use it as a resist, all kinds of cool things. So don't let yourself be limited just because the stencil is a specific design. All right, so there's my tree branch. Now what I'm going to actually do is make another branch. Oh, that's a little bit wetter than I probably should have it be. Well, it's not too bad down there. Let's do that. All right, so now I'm almost making it like a tree. So I'm like, I don't think I want the birds in there. I'll do something else with it. And just dab away nice and gentle. This crackle finish, when it dries, I'm hoping will give it kind of the barky texture. But like I said, if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's just trying stuff, and I'm fine if it doesn't. I just thought it would be interesting to see what would happen. In there, the stencil's lifting up a little bit. I can tell you that I'm probably getting seepage underneath there. There we go. Sometimes you just have to focus on where you're holding it down. Cool. Ooh, would your pan pastels work? I would think so, yes. I would think you could pan pastel through it. Especially if you used a sponge and daubed it. What I think would be cool is if you even made like a resist with it, so you could, like I've done with ink, is like a Versamark ink that stays a little bit wet, is dab that and then do your pan pastel over it, because it'll stick to that. But I think you could use your pan pastels with it. That's a good question. I think you could. You should try it. It is Try It Tuesday. Try it and see if it works, but I think it would work. I would venture to guess that anything that comes through would work. And now we all know the magical rule of 3, right? We've talked about that, I think, before. Where the eye likes 3s. So I'm just trying to think where I want to put my third one here. I think probably in the middle a little bit more. Maybe like that. What do you think? Is that one good? I think so. Is this dry enough? It's not super dry. What can we do to help this dry? I could probably heat gun it, but you know, I feel like heat gunning is one of the most annoying things to do while you're doing a video because it's so loud. There we go. It's probably a little bit better. Yeah. This dries, it's not too wet, so it dries pretty fast. There we go. Okay, I think that's a good spot. All right, so the rule of 3, your eyes, ears, like just likes the symmetry of 3s. Even I did some studying on how to write, took a course actually, on how to write a good speech. And to get ready for a speech contest that I just did. And that was one of the things the teacher said too, is that when you're doing your speech, bundle things up in 3s, because it's just human nature apparently to like 3s. I'm not sure why, but it is a thing. I need a little more paint. Now this is not as thick because I don't have this kind of medium in it. So I don't need anywhere near as much. Because again, if you put too much on, it's going to go straight through. You're always better off putting a little bit on and going back and picking up more than putting too much on. So if you put too much on, it just, with the stencil especially, just makes a big mess. And a little bit actually goes a long way. I forgot to put my music on, so now it's just quiet background. Quiet. There we go. So there's my 3s. I'm going to set that aside for a second and let it dry. Rinse off my little dauber brush here and my bucket of water that I put my other stencil in from before. There we go. That's clean enough for that. No, wipe this off a little bit here. And I like to do this with it kind of held down again so I don't bend up the stencil too much. This is why people have their art studios in like converted kitchens or hair salons or whatever, because they have water right handy instead of having in your bedroom with a bucket of water next to you. But that's all right. I've yet to spill anything, although I should probably knock on wood now that I've said that out loud. There we go. If I cleaned it with water, it soaks through a little bit, but we just wipe it clean. There we go. And they don't have to be perfect. Generally it'll dry and good to go. And actually, because this is really wet, dab it with this dry one just to dry it off a little bit. Here we go. Okay. Bring this back. Now, there are lots of really pretty like flowers and leaves and things that I want to put on here. So I'm going to line it back up. And again, doesn't have to be perfect, but I can kind of see where I had it. If I want to put the leaves and things kind of where they are on there. I'm going to use my really tiny dauber, I think, now. And this is a wetter, thinner green paint. And you can always add water to it, too, if it's not thin enough. Again, don't necessarily need a lot. I'm not mixing this with another color, so I don't have to go. Although I kind of feel like it's almost too bright of a green, but that's okay. Just gonna go with it. And put some of these little leaves on here. And I might not even do all the leaf, because then I can, now I have some crazy ideas about cool stuff I'm gonna do. Just watch it happen. This stencil in particular, it has so many little fine things that it would be a really pretty monochromatic. I'm sure you remember monochromatic is all the same single color family. All right, this one would be really good for drawing with. 2, I think, yeah, there's just so much fine little detail in here. This would be great just a black on white even. Because some of these spots are almost too little to be really super fussy with. I could draw them out even with a pencil and then paint them. like as if they were, you know, with a watercolor or whatever, as if I drew it, but actually having almost traced it, but stenciled it. So there's lots of options, lots and lots and lots. All right, and I'm not being super fussy with this because what I am going to do is, maybe I'll still use, I'll use one of these. Now I'm going to add some, let's see, I can't get quite as far back into here as I want because my stand is here. Here we go. And make this a little bit interesting now, people. Okay. So, I'm going to take just a little corner and add some copper. Like now it's like a fall leaf. Ho, look out! Getting crazy. Just adds a little more color. And if I keep the stencil like right where it is and dab, I shouldn't get too much paint mixing. I could wait until that green paint dries and then I'd have less mixing. But in nature, the colors blend, right? Yes, they do. So yeah, what do you think about that idea? Ho, pretty crazy. I think this will look really cool when it's done. All right, so there's that, and I think I'll put this flower in too right away since I have the stencil here. Oh, what should we do for the flower? Maybe just a red? Or, what if we get crazy? Let's use some glitter paint. Because we've got it. Doesn't want to stick on this, so I'm just going to pick it up with this. And I have a finer tipped one I probably could use on here, but that's okay. And none of this is about being perfect, just about playing and trying. Did you try your pan pastels with your stencil, Mom? Give it a shot. Try it on Try It Tuesday, right? That's what we're all about on Try It Tuesday. Okay. Oh, look at that. Look at that. And that's, you don't see those crazy birds that I wasn't so sure about. Right? I think that is lovely. But now, of course, I feel like it needs another flower. Should probably. This is always the downside, is being patient and letting things dry. Especially when I'm live, because I don't want to make you wait all day. Should be drier. Pretty good. Okay. So I want to add another flower. I think up here. Yes, I do. right? So again, taking the stencil and using the stuff, but I'm making my own design with it. I'm not letting myself be restricted by the artist's design. I am letting my creativity flow and doing something different. Well, I have 3 people watching now. Who else is watching aside from my mom and Gina? Who are you? There we go. And then let's put a leaf on here. Probably need more green. Everyone must be working so hard. You're all so quiet. Yvette, hello! Did you get your Win It Wednesday yet, Yvette? She was our winner last week. That's a lot of paint. That's fine. Add some copper in there, right? Let it blend, because nature blends. Nature is not straight lines. I need more copper. That's kind of a lot, and I feel like the stencil moved, but that's okay. All right, look at that. See, so it's gone from this crazy bird stencil to this. I don't know about you, but I am already loving it. Way more than if I just had to use the stencil the way it is. I probably would hardly use it because I just, like I said, this bird is okay. These other 2, I'm just not super wild about. And I like birds, but I'm not super wild about that design. Now let's see, again, that's going to be wet. And so I need to dry it. Well, I'll let it sit for a second. I'm going to wipe off some of this real quick just because I can. Oh, good. You love the book on so many levels. Awesome. It does have lots of cool sounds and textures, doesn't it? That's one of the things I think that makes those kind of junk journals or art journals so great. Is that they are so tactile. There's a lot to them. It's not just paper in a book. So Yvette got the, if you remember, the first video I did for Try It Tuesday was making the junk journal just in a random junk. And Yvette got that, and then I had used some of the watercolors and other things to make kind of inserts into the pages as well. So I'm glad you like it. Thank you for joining. All right, so it's pretty good. That took a moment to dry. That's still wet though, so we'll zap it. Sorry. And you probably can't see my crackle medium, but it is, if you could see it close, you would see that it is kind of crackly and you'd feel it. You can feel the crackle even more than you can really see it, I think, because the lines are so thin. Okay, so now I could put this again over where it was. I don't know if I want to keep, yeah, I guess that's not bad. I don't mind the flower overlap so much. I could just put some leaves there. Maybe I'll just put some leaves. Ooh, I like that. I like where I actually have the flower kind of coming off over there. I do. Right, and it's just looking and saying, oh, what do I like? What do I like? This is my art, and I'm not necessarily going to follow the art of the designer, but I'm going to use this designer's art to make something that I like. And that's definitely what I'm doing here. Right, and I could always go back in and color these branches in with something. Like a pan pastel would be really pretty coloring in the lines. A watercolor paint would be really pretty. Any of those really would work and be kind of cool. Right, and then just, it's all about, like I said, using what you've got and stretching it. Like you could do so many different things with this if you just stop thinking of this bird stencil as this bird stencil. And I've done, like I said, lots where I do small ones and just repeat them over and over. Right, and do you want it to be its own design, or is it the background for something else? Just so many things. I think I need more of this, maybe. Well, maybe not. A little bit goes a long way, of course. This is actually spreading through here better than I thought it was. I was a little bit worried about it. It's working really good. I do need to touch more though. All right, and it's all about using, not saving. Don't buy it and save it for something. That's not what art supplies are for. They're not a collectible. They are a consumable. If you don't consume them, eventually they go bad, and then you haven't had any opportunity to enjoy them, and nobody else has either. They've just simply gone to waste, like buying a piece of chicken and never cooking it and letting it get stinky in your fridge. Right? Same thing with art supplies. Don't let them get stinky in your art supply drawer. I think that's coming along really nice. I'm really liking it. Right, and all from a stencil that I wasn't so particularly excited about. I think I want to add my problem is always these little wet spots. I'd add more leaves in there. So I'll give that a second to try, I guess. Yeah, I just don't want to. I want it to dry faster. Need to live in a place like Arizona where it's really dry all the time. Then I won't feel like I'm waiting all day for my paints to dry. It's all full of glitter now. I'm gonna rinse that out. There we go. Okay. Chalk or caulk. You could use caulk or chalk, Mom. I think you could, like I said, with a stencil, you can use anything. You could, just like I'm using this glitter paint, you could do caulk. I mean, you'd have to make sure you clean the stencil off after or it would get ruined, but you absolutely could use caulk. And yes, you could use chalk too. You could use powdered chalk, like on a little dauber brush. I think you could probably even use a stick. You could use chalk paint or chalk paste, which is all the rage right now. So yeah, lots of options. Lots and lots and lots. Now, whenever I use the glitters especially, I like to make sure I don't leave them on the bottom, because that's another, even though it's really fine, it's another thing that pops up the stencil and lets stuff leak under it, which I don't like so much. It's okay to have a little bit, but I don't like it to be all blobby, which I've had those blobby times. Yes, don't buy so many supplies that you can't use them all. Well, you know, that's, I think, the downfall of many of us, Yvette. At least I think, take it out and use it one time, right? And then I at least feel better. Like, okay, at least I took it out of the package and used it once. And maybe it's for one specific project and then I don't go back and use it up, but at least I've used a little bit of it. But yes, it is very easy to buy too many things and not get around to using them in our busy lives. I will tell you, I have plenty of things that I've not used. So I will also own that problem. Go. Okay, let's do one over here. Maybe there's this weird bird foot here that I don't really want to have to look at, and I think I could use a pretty flower over here, maybe like that. Right now I'm tipping the stencil so it's like almost upside down and sideways, right? We're getting crazy here. Maybe I should do the glitter first, and that would give it more time to dry before I do the other paint. There you go. Okay. I got a little green paint on here. There we go, that's better. Oh, there's a lot of goop on here. I did not realize I had so much goop on here. Oh, where'd my flower go? Okay. That lifted up a little bit. I feel like I'm going to have a little bit of a blob underneath. I need to be more gentle. Just almost like decorating a cake. Yvette, you're experienced in that. You know how it goes. Nice and gentle. Not too crazy. Spread it nice. Kind of pat it down a little bit so it sticks to the paper. A little bit more. There we go. A little tiny bit more. There we go. We're almost at 8 o'clock again. I think this is good. I think I'm going to have it just about done before we leave today. And hopefully everyone else has had an opportunity to play with their stencils too and try some things. So I'd love to know what you've all tried. So Mom, Yvette, Marley, Gina, tell me what you've tried with your stencil. Did you do painting? Did you draw? Did you use chalk? Did you use the stencil as intended, or did you go off the grid like me? Tell me what you did. I would love to know. Or did you just sit and watch? Which is fine too. But you're not going to use up your art supplies that way. So at least be inspired after to go and use your art supplies. Mars painted. Cool. Marley, did you use the stencil as intended, or did you get creative with it and use different pieces to make your own design? Mom, how about you? What did you do? Yvette, did you join in at all, or are you just watching and getting ideas? Yeah, see, that one did get blobby in the middle. I could tell it was. But that's okay. It's just going to be what it is. And then, so that's a 4. Odd numbers also are better for your eye than even when you're thinking about art. I could do 6, which would be a trio of 3s. That's an okay even. Otherwise, odds are better. Oh, you sent me a picture. Awesome. I can't look at it because I'm using my phone to film, but I will look at it when I'm done. And that's probably Oh, good. Oh, she put the link in there. Awesome. Love it. Snap that here. Let's see. I feel like I need just one more. I don't know if I want to put it here, here, or maybe I end up doing both. I'm going to go here just because that's too wet. And I need a little something here. And maybe I don't do the leaves. I don't do all the leaves. Yeah, maybe that's the ticket. So I'm just kind of looking for spots where the birds are and I'm covering them up. Take this down better. Right, and then here I did some of these other little leaves too, which I didn't do on here. So I'd probably go back and add more of that in. Right, once it dries, I can always be fussy and add some more stuff. That's the beauty of it. Just having fun. Right, it's like Art with Auntie on Tuesday night, right, Marley? Marley is my awesome niece who is super artistic. So I love it when she gets to join, because then she gets to do some cool art things. And then hopefully next time I go to her house to visit, she can get out her little workbook of art projects that we've been working on and show me what she's made. So that would be so cool. I would love it. Right? Or send me pictures, or both. Pictures are always nice, but they're never quite as good as seeing it in person, I think. I need a little more copper paint. And then I think we're going to be done. It'll be 8 o'clock. It'll be a good night of art. Like I said, I can let this dry and do some other fill-ins if I need to. I could make a background on it if I want to. Whatever I feel like doing once this is dry. I like to fuss a lot, so I'm sure I won't be done once this dries. I'm sure I'll be like, oh, I could put this, and who knows, maybe the birds end up back in here. You never can tell. I could easily change my mind and say, nah, I think it needs the birds, but we'll see. Today, I'm not feeling the birds. All right. That'll be my odd number. I like that a lot. Like I said, it's not done, but I like that a lot. And I like this much more than I ever liked this. Right? I don't like that. I don't like it. It's okay, but no. But I took a stencil that I wasn't sure about, and I made it into something that I really like. So I'll add more things into here, but I really like that. I have other flowered stencils I might add. I could add some berries in there. Who knows? But I think that turned out awesome. So hopefully you all got to try something fun with your stencils and get creative and innovative and make something new and fun, and tried painting and dabbing and all of that cool stuff that you just have to do to figure out how things work and to find what you like when you're making art. So all of you, Mom, Gina, Yvette, have a wonderful night. Thank you for joining. I know I had fun. Like I said, I love my stencils, so anytime I have an excuse to use them, I use them. And we will talk again soon. Bye!